Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to get into a pretty crazy challenge. I'm going to be attempting to draw this page from Berserk, Guts on the back of Zod, fighting Ganishka. And it's one of the most heavily detailed pages in all of Berserk. Of course it doesn't have the epic mythological creatures, I guess besides Zod. But what I found really interesting was how I was going to tackle the lightning strikes, those white areas, and all that detail on Zod and Guts as well. I wanted to try a challenge. So the challenge is 10 minutes versus 1 hour versus 10 hours. So I'm going to be completing 3 different artworks, all of the same reference. And in the first page, I have 10 minutes to do it. In the second one, I have 1 hour. And in the third one, I have 10 hours. So that's why there wasn't a video last week. I was spending extra time on completing this challenge. And I'll be back to weekly uploading starting next week. So yeah, each one is going to be, of course, more time to add detail. And then at the end, you can let me know which one in the comments looks the best. I did find that spending the least amount of time on something, you don't overthink areas and you just work into it exactly as you see. And I think I got the proportions, like it felt a bit more natural to me to work quicker. And with 10 hours, you just have so much time to overthink and overwork, and I ended up making everything a little bit darker than it needed to be. So yeah, let's get into it. So starting with the 10-minute page, I knew, of course, like I said before, I was not going to get the detail I wanted. My main focus was just getting a general outline, and if I could get any sort of hatching lines to represent the shading and the movement of the piece, then it would be like a great success for me. So I'm spending this time trying to block in Zod, trying to block in Guts. I completely forgot about the panels on the side with Guts' face and then Ganishka's eyeball as well. So I was just like rushing towards the end and I messed up some of the panels, but that's okay. I think I spent a bit too much time. If I was to redo it, I wouldn't spend that much time on Zod. I'd maybe try to use a thicker fine liner. 0.4 here that I used was not thick enough, and I would try to use a 0.8 just to really rush through those outline shapes. I was able to sort of get an idea of the piece, so like it kind of has a likeness. If you put it two side by side, it looks like someone tried to redraw it. So I'm kind of happy about that, and Zod's proportions look alright. Guts, if you zoom in, is just a rushed mess, but I tried my best for 10 minutes. There's literally like not much you can do in 10 minutes, but yeah, it is what it is, and that's how it turned out. 10 minutes down. Okay, time for the next phase. We're moving on to 1 hour. So with all these pieces, I found it easiest to start with Zod's face and Zod's body, just because it's in the bottom left and it's kind of the main focus of this. And Guts' body and proportions and face and details was quite obscured in the original reference as well. So starting off with Zod's face, I'm using a small fine liner, a 0.1, and I'm trying to go into a little bit more detail, but again, focusing on those outlines because I know that I might have enough time for a couple different phases here. So using a brush tip and then using the alcohol markers for just light gray tones, and even white highlighter too, just to add those lightning effects. So everything does become quite obscured and darker, but I'm just hoping to get sort of any sort of resemblance to the piece, to the reference. So as you can see, again, I left the panels on the right a bit too late, so I'm rushing through it, but I was able to get a little bit more detail. I did mess up Guts' face, and just by adding that little sort of gesture mark around his nose, he ends up looking way more chubby, but that's alright. I was able to work in some markers and then some white highlighter to get the lightning strikes going, and I ended up not having enough time to get a smaller brush. You can see I got up and ran around because I was looking for like any Posca marker, which I should have bought before this, but I thought white highlight would be enough. So again, I'd have to just reapply, re-dip. So for the first 2 pieces, I had to use fine liners, so 0.1, 0.4, and just because dipping pens like a G pen that I usually use or a Maru pen was not going to cut it, I couldn't afford to have any time to re-dip, rework, re-dip, rework. So a lot of the pieces kind of obscured in this sort of fine liner, especially as the fine liner started to run out. But overall, I got to say I'm pretty happy with the 1 hour. I think it looks quite good. Again, like I was saying, I do not need to overthink proportions or overthink areas, so this felt really, really good to me. And yeah, I was able just to get the basic sort of tonal value exactly where I wanted it to be. But yeah, that's it. That's the 1 hour. I was happy with it. Definitely some improvements, but I'm actually quite enjoying working really, really quickly. Growing up, going through art schools, there were some live drawing classes I'd have to go to, and their teacher there would always teach working in a couple minutes at a time, trying to get the form down, not worrying too much about the details. So not worrying about details around the face, like eyebrows, eyes, nose. So this kind of felt natural to me to go back to that sort of idea of just trying to get the whole form down as quickly as you can, rather than worrying too much about details, and then having that time for yourself to go back into details after. Okay, now is the big boy, the 10 hours. Now, I'll be honest, I know this was a 10-minute, 1 hour, 10-hour challenge, but I could have finished this whole reference in 8 hours, and I just spent the last 2 just working back into areas, and sometimes overworking as well. When you allow yourself too much time, all that time can be spent overthinking and then overworking areas, and what I eventually did was make it a bit too dark. So with 10 hours, I could use my G pen, and I dipped. I used small brushes to fill in the blacks with the dip as well, and what this created was a very, very nice sort of matte black in those darker areas. Now with Berserk, what Miura does is a lot of these heavily detailed panels you can see have these heavy blacks, but have these white spaces as well. And it can kind of be a challenge between, do I use my dip pen to fill in the blacks, just working back over the top of itself so you can get those white spaces naturally, or can you save time and fill in the blacks using a paintbrush and then work your dip pen just out of those areas. So it was kind of a toss-up between those two. What I ended up doing was starting with my G pen and dipping in and filling in those black areas, just working over the top, over the top, over the top. And then if some areas needed to be completely black, I would then go with my paintbrush back over the top of those black areas. The real challenge here, I'll be honest, are not quite the lightning strikes. It's the wind current things you can see here. Those like expressions of wind coming from guts, coming from Zod's wings, coming from Zod's like body. And these areas are filled with like a gray tone as well. So what Miura did is he didn't work back into it with like a highlighter. Miura's purposely left those areas blank, which he's worked into it with a pencil, and then left blank as he was inking as well, which is incredible. So my idea, just to save time, was to go back into it using a white highlighter. But of course, white highlighter, it's not the easiest thing to then use alcohol marker over the top of, or use a dip pen over the top of, so they stand out quite a bit and there's that weird sort of contrast. So if I was to do this again, I would just do what Miura did and incorporate it in the drawing as best as I could. One thing I did as well is that sometimes with hatching lines, especially on a piece this detailed, a dip pen, a G pen, for instance, you get inconsistent shading lines. So like as you're dipping and as you're shading across, there could be something with your G pen where the ink's not flowing properly, or there could be like your ink could run out halfway through a shading process and then it's inconsistent. So if I was to retackle this, I would just focus on my outlines and the larger shapes with a dip pen just to get that natural line weight change. And then I would go back and do my hatching and my complete shading with my fine liners. I was pretty happy with the end result. Guts' face is quite obscured. Everything that gets so small is pretty obscured, and that's just natural because it's really, really hard to work that small. Even though I'm working on an A3 page, trying to draw Guts' face that small is incredibly difficult. Doing this challenge made me appreciate Miura even more. Like, this artwork is seriously incredible, and all I'm doing is trying to replicate it. But to have the creativity and a thought process to put something like this down on a page is really mind-blowing, I'll be honest. It's made me a bigger fan if I wasn't already just his #1 fan. And this process taught me a lot. It taught me not overthinking, not overworking. That's something I learned. So the first 2 pieces, the 10 minutes and the 1 hour, were just free flowing. Of course, they're missing lots and lots of detail. They're not perfect by any means, but when I spent too long on the piece, I was just constantly overworking it and overthinking it too, and a lot of those areas became obscured. So there's like a good mid-ground to find. Don't rush a piece, but also don't spend too long on it that you end up ruining it. But yeah, this is the final result. Here's the 10 minute, here's the 1 hour, and then here's the 10 hour. So yeah, let me know which one is your favorite. I really enjoyed doing this, but it took a lot of time and effort, so I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe if you're new. I'm trying to reach, like I said before, 1,000 subs before the end of the year. And yeah, let me know what I should draw next. Let me know what I should review next. What I have done as well is I have a new Etsy page. I got my first sale on it last week, I got my first sale on it a couple days ago, which I'll be drawing the commission in the channel. So if you're interested in getting a page, panel, your own sort of reference idea that I put together as well, if you're interested in getting something like that, please check out the Etsy link and I can then just draw it on the channel. Yeah, I hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.